Ecosystem that there are other areas where the job that allowed me to stay in LA as opposed to what I want.
Worked through a number of different departments. I started in media sales.
Well, I think that as we've seen, many companies are.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Class E podcast. I'm your host, Mary Sturgill, the Innovation and Entrepreneur Faculty Fellow at Furman University. I want to thank you for joining us today. This podcast, as you know, is brought to you through a partnership between the Furman Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center and the Communication Studies Department at Furman University. And today we welcome on the show Neal Anderson, who is the President and CEO of OnPay Solutions, as well as a Furman alum. Neal has held numerous roles across many different companies, including being a CEO, a COO, as well as working in business development, finance, and sales. You name it, Neal's probably done it. He's a self-proclaimed entrepreneur at heart who loves the challenge of growing businesses. Neal, welcome to the Class E podcast.
Thank you, Mary. It's great to be here and appreciate you including me today.
All right. So we have a lot to talk about because I just skimmed the surface of everything that you've done. And I know this is going to be a loaded question, but can you talk a little bit about how you came to be where you are today from your time here at Furman?
Oh,
and I
yeah,
know that's
absolutely.
A lot.
It's only about 100 years worth of history there, Mary. But all joking aside, I was a political science major at Furman University. I played football, came to Furman on a football scholarship, and really those 4 years were just a great foundation for my career. Even reflecting back on Coach Sheridan and how he preached to us, every week, every game, how you can improve and get better, every time. And I'll never forget after we beat Georgia Tech, which was a huge win for us, right? For the school, for Furman, it was a huge win for us. And I remember coming into Sunday film study that Sunday evening after the game. And of course, we were all on cloud nine as players, but Coach Sheridan came in there and said, guys, that was a great win. Don't get me wrong, that was a great win. But when you look at this film and you see all the things we're doing wrong as a football team, I just know we can get so much better. And I've always taken that away, that you can always get better in everything that you're doing in life as well. But, from Furman, my resume landed on the desk of a fellow by the name of Tom Woodson, who was also a Furman alum, who had also been a football player years before I was there. But it landed on his desk, and he was with Build a Mart of America, and he hired me into my first job. And that first job was with a computer automation system that focused on lumber yards and hardware stores. And so my first job out of college, I was going all over the country installing computer systems and then teaching the employees how to use it. And so it was really, as a poli-sci major at Furman, I didn't have a lot of business education background, but I got that at Build a Mart of America, where I was, got frontline view of point of sale systems, accounts receivable, accounts payable, general ledger, inventory control, how a business is run, from end to end. And then I got to see it from how a computer can automate that. And so, just taking that, I've always been in the technology field, and I've always been around accounting and finance automation with that. And of course, that led me to, a pretty long career in B2B payment technology companies, which culminated in starting OnPay Solutions a little more than 11 years ago. And now here we are as a fintech accounts payable automation company that really prides itself on empowering people to improve the lives of accounting departments globally. And that's what we're all about.
Yeah. So for people who might not understand exactly what you just said, what does OnPay Solutions do specifically? And maybe who are some of your clients?
Yeah, so we help our clients make a digital transformation away from paper-based accounts payable practices to fully electronic. And that's kind of a mouthful, but you think about an inbound invoice coming in. routing around for approval of that invoice, matching it up with a purchase order, with shipping materials, and approving that invoice for payment, and then taking that information and then actually paying that vendor and automating that payment of the vendor so the vendor can be paid electronically and doesn't have to receive a paper check, and have a whole host of different options to be paid and to be paid faster then as well. And so, everything we do, like I said, is to improve that accounting department, that environment. And here at OnPay Solutions, we've got over 400 clients, and they range from really well-known companies like Trader Joe's, U-Haul, AIG, to more middle market and smaller businesses as well.
Okay. So you have been in multiple positions in multiple companies through the years. So you've seen the idea of leadership. I'm sure you've had good leaders. I'm sure you've been a good leader. I'm sure you've had some bad leaders. Can you talk a little bit about leaders, what you know about leadership and how that's changed through the years?
Yeah, I think from you're absolutely right. I mean, leaders come in all shapes and sizes, good and bad. And for me, leadership's always been about really three key driving principles. And this is what I try to instill into, every employee at OnPay Solutions hears this, and they hear it at least once a month. That is, one, treat others the way you want to be treated. It's pretty simple. We all learn this early on, but treat others the way you want to be treated. And that obviously is with respect and kindness and gratitude. Second is do the very best you can. That's all anybody can ask of you to do, is your very best. And then the third is do what's right. Everybody knows what's right and wrong, right? And so, from a company standpoint, you have your job. You know what time you're supposed to be at your job. If you have an hour for lunch, you take an hour for lunch. You just do what's right. And those three principles have really helped me in my career and in my leadership positions then as well. And I don't necessarily know if a lot of folks take that into account, that personal element about that, but I wish more would.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The other thing I wanted to talk about, because we're still in the middle of the pandemic, and let me rephrase that, take out that the other thing I wanted to talk about is that, we're still in the middle of the pandemic, and you have your company OnPay Solutions, but you also kind of have your fingers in other companies as well, based on the services that you provide for them. So from your point of view, what kinds of things have you seen in how businesses are dealing with COVID? How are they surviving? What kinds of interesting things have you observed or done yourself that have helped you survive, or helped the companies that you see survive during this?
Yeah, and I mean, the pandemic has had, and by the way, I say this with the utmost respect because I know a lot of companies are suffering in a real challenge.
Yeah.
But as far as OnPay Solutions is concerned, the pandemic has actually had an accelerating effect on our business. And it's really, you can point directly to the pandemic, because before the pandemic, paper-based processes were still very common, are still very common in most businesses in the United States. For example, the paper check, for example, is still 50% of the B2B payment volume still goes by paper check. And when I say 50%, we're talking about 4 to 5 billion checks that are printed and mailed every year.
Wow.
And the challenge that we saw is when the pandemic hit, chief financial officers and accounting departments, had contingency plans for the company, but nobody took into account the fact that the office would close and that everybody would have to go home and try to do their jobs from home. And so when you talk about trying to pay the company's bills remotely, when you're printing and mailing checks, really a big challenge, really a big challenge. In fact, we had an accounts payable manager call up this past summer. She called in and she tells us a story that, when the pandemic hit in March, they shut down. She took the office laser printer home with her, check stocking envelopes, and she was printing the checks every week. And it just so happened that their CFO lives in her neighborhood. And so he was coming over twice a week and hand signing checks on her front porch. And she just, there has to be a better way. And of course, when in our solution and our technology, really promoting a no-touch process, no touch payment process, so that that CFO, you can pay the bills from your office, from your smartphone, or even from your kitchen table. And so that's been, primary. Our biggest role is to helping our clients be able to keep the lights on and keep operating in a remote environment.
Yeah, that's amazing because that manpower or the lack of manpower and that distance that we've had to do, she was lucky that her CFO lived in her neighborhood, because
Oh yeah,
otherwise it would have been another added level of a headache, right? And time to go track him down and get him to sign those checks just to be able
absolutely,
to get them out, right?
absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit about the idea of a mission, because I think it plays heavily into how companies operate if they have a good mission. Can you talk a little bit about that? I know you do some education on this.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in developing your mission statement as a company, especially startups and early stage companies. I'm a huge believer in this, and I learned this and came to learn this, somewhat the hard way.
Yeah.
And for us, by the way, our mission is to empower people to improve the lives of accounting departments globally, and that's a pretty simple statement.
Mhm.
But for me, without a mission statement, and when we got started with OnPay Solutions, for me, I was later in my career. I was in my mid 40s when we started OnPay, and I had already enjoyed a fairly successful career. And so to say I was overconfident was, I think, a little bit of a understatement. I came into OnPay Solutions thinking, hey, this is going to be, I'm just going to replicate what I've been able to do over the past 20 years,
Mhm.
and this is going to be, a great startup, and we're going to do great things, and all these visions that I had. But I tell you, when we were about 3 years into it, and guess what? Nobody cared about who the heck I was and what we were doing. But as a company, it was 3 years into it, and you're laying awake at night, and you're worrying about making payroll, and you're worrying about, making sales and making numbers, and just all the things that just the anxiety of just, overtaking you. I really realized that this is not about me. This is
Yeah.
not about me in a big way. And I think that's when we define that mission. And being able to define that mission was more about, what are we out to execute as a company,
Mhm.
and then getting the existing team, and then finding other people who can buy into that mission, and will start to execute on that mission. And when we started to do that, then it was amazing how the company just turned around, and we focused on the client. We focused on improving the lives of accounting departments. And when we broke that down, you look at, of course, our people. We want to empower our people to be trained on the solution, and to have the right solution, and to be able to educate our clients on that, our sales team to be able to, invoke the value of our solutions to our prospects and such. But ultimately, what it really boils down to is the actual people in those accounting departments. When you take paper out of the whole process, and you free up time so they can focus on their real accounting jobs, not sitting there with a laser printer that's printing checks that they have to fold and stuff paper, or trying to track down somebody with an invoice to approve, that may be in your office, or maybe across town, or maybe across the country, trying to get all that. But when you make all that a digital process, and the time and the resources and the money that's being saved, we're really making a difference. It really does make a huge difference for our clients. And when you're making a huge difference for your clients really, you're endearing yourself to your client. And so it makes them not want to make another decision or leave. And in our world, we purposely built a business with reoccurring revenue, so that every time they
Right.
use the system, we're able to bill for it. And the whole idea is you get your first clients, you add clients, second clients, third clients, fourth, and they just stack up on top of each other. And if none of them are leaving, or very few of them are leaving, then
Right.
you're going to end up with a successful business. But it all really reflects back on that mission.
So you said a couple of things in there that I want to reiterate and point out for our listeners. You talked about if you have a good mission statement, then it allows you to get the right people. So not only in your hiring process, but the right clients who fit and they believe, and it breeds that loyalty on that side, right? Because I believe
Absolutely.
in what this company is doing. Am I
Absolutely. And
correct?
that, yeah, absolutely. And people, I've learned that, you know, there's some people who want a job, don't get me wrong, but
Right.
really quality, good, team oriented folks really want more than a job. They want to be empowered to accomplish something special. And that's what I think, we try to do here at OnPay Solutions is find those people who can buy into the mission and dedicate themselves to that client and improving those lives. And it's really does work out well.
It does. And I also want to reiterate the other thing that you pointed out is that if you have that mission statement guiding everybody, every employee, then if there's ever a problem or an issue, where do they have to look? To the mission statement, right?
That's right. That's right. And which is also a great way to stay focused on your business too, because if there's all sorts of ideas, all sorts of new things that you can do. Technology is constantly evolving and changing and such, and which is tempting to go chasing some other line of business and such. But for us, we focus on that mission. If it doesn't involve the accounting department and helping those clients in that accounting department, then we're not going to do it. We're going to stay focused on our mission.
Right. Excellent. So, and then the third area you were talking about is it makes you successful because if everybody's on the same page with the mission statement, and everybody's working toward the mission statement, then those clients are going to pile up.
Yeah, and so that's what going full circle back to when we started the company, and I thought it was all about more about me and that I'm going to be able to accomplish this and all these things that I had in my mind to accomplish and was failing, flat out failing, and not accomplishing. By focusing on the mission now, you're fast forward 8, 10, 11 years later, and we are successful. We are execute. We are becoming and have become the company that I always envisioned that I could drive, but I can't drive it myself, not at all. And it's all about, the team and the people and the clients. But coming full circle, we're now the company that I always envisioned we'd be, 12 years ago. And so here we are now. And I can point to that mission statement as when we really turn the corner to start making that happen.
Yeah, so that's obviously one piece of advice that you would give people is if you don't have a good mission statement for your company, then create one that can be kind of your guiding light
Absolutely.
for everyone in the company. What other pieces of advice would you give people at different levels maybe of their entrepreneurial journey, whether they're just starting out or maybe they're in it and they're having a tough time because of COVID? What other advice would you have for them?
Yeah, there's so much that I've learned and experienced, especially in all different levels and phases of a business. But when you're starting out, everything is about, and I say it's always about cash. It's always about cash flow. One of my key best sayings is happiness is a positive cash flow, and especially in an entrepreneur world where it's very common that you have to start spending more than you're earning. And that's a very nervous place to be. And you'll always have to watch your cash and be able to know when to stop that or pull out of that or even to raise money then as well. On raising money, I've got a lot of, strong feelings about raising money from both institutional investors, private equity, angel investors and such. My advice to entrepreneurs is to, guard your equity. It's all, I joke, it's like, I just half joke. I say, you only have 100% of the business. And when you go and start raising money, you're going to be giving up, maybe potentially large chunks of that percentage. And so just guard that and understand that raising money is not glamorous. I think the business press really, overemphasizes. You're always reading XYZ company just raised $12 million in a Series A, or XYZ company raised $50 million in a Series B, or even further. And so, that's fine. But from a founder standpoint, you only have your 100%, and every time you raise money, that 100% gets diluted, and you lose more and more control of your business then as well. And then lastly, you have to be thankful. You have to give thanks to the folks who are helping you. you have to give thanks and have a grateful heart, because, like I said, you're not going to get there alone by any means. And one of the things that, we were able to do to give thanks and to give back to our employees is, our employee stock option program has been really, is a way for us to be able to carve out a certain percentage of the company and reward the key players that have been with us and continue to help us execute.
Right. And that breeds loyalty and complete buy-in to what you're doing as well, because
That's right.
they actually have stock in it.
They actually, they definitely are motivated to make sure the company's successful.
Exactly. Neal, such great advice. I've so enjoyed talking to you today, and I'm sure we could talk forever. So I'm going to have you back on the podcast, but we'll wrap it up for today. Thank you so much for being on the podcast with us today.
You're very welcome, Mary. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to spend time with you.
Yeah, great information today, guys. And we hope that you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did, and we hope that you learned something today. To hear future conversations on the Class E podcast, sure to follow us on social media and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Release dates are twice a month, so you can look for us 2 times a month. We'll have an episode for you. Again, thank you for listening to the Class E podcast, brought to you through a partnership between Furman Innovation and Entrepreneurship and the Communication Studies Department at Furman University. I'm your host, Mary Sturgill. Until next time, everybody, dream big.